Hello. It's been a while since I just came live, and today I've decided that I should definitely come live and we talk what is happening. Actually, what's happening? There is a lot that is definitely happening, I must say, in the camp of Arsenal. As you know, that we are in the transfers. We've definitely gone to the transfers. We're in the transfer season, and actually some clubs have already started business. Recently, it's just today. One of Arsenal's targets, McAllister from Brighton and Hove, was signed by Liverpool. Anyway, we've got quite a lot to bring to you. We've got a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. There is quite a lot to bring to you as we're going to be talking about transfers, who's going where, who's leaving the club, or we're talking about departures, we're talking about a lot. There is quite a lot to talk about, really. So we're going to be digging deep into this. So let's first talk about whom should we start with? Should we start with Ilke Gundogan? Should we start with Declan Rice? Should we start with Moises Caicedo? You can always go to the comment section, and definitely we can always have a talk in the comment section. And let's start with, I think we should start with Moises Caicedo. Let's start with Declan Rice. Okay, Declan Rice, first of all, I think all Arsenal fans by now should be knowing who Declan Rice is. Uh, anyway, for those of you who do not know my name is Abu Kals. Before we go any further, and we are in the transfers. Transfer season is here, and let's get into the transfers. Anyway, the football player we're talking about now is Declan Rice. We're going to have quite a long talk about Declan Rice. So you will remember that Declan Rice has been linked to quite a number of clubs, but recently, do not forget that Declan Rice recently had a very good. Actually, the last season was a very good season for Declan Rice. He performed quite well in the World Cup. When it came to international business, he played very well, and that's why very many clubs were after him. That's why very many clubs said, "We want Declan Rice. We need Declan Rice." And some of these clubs include Bayern Munich and Liverpool, Manchester United, and now Arsenal. And just yesterday, Declan Rice had was in a final, and he played brilliantly, and he managed to take West Ham managed to take the Conference Cup. That was quite well. When you see how Declan Rice played yesterday, you can definitely tell how good a footballer he is, how good he plays, definitely like as a defensive midfielder. So Mikel Arteta has been on the hunt for a defensive midfielder. And that's why you can see the football players that we're going to talk about. There are a few defensive midfielders. But Declan Rice is actually an exceptional. If you watched yesterday's game, how he played brilliantly. He was an exceptional, was definitely playing quite well. So Declan Rice as a football player, I think he's a brilliant one. But right about now, there is a bit of a fight for the player. There is a bidding war that is going on. Do not forget that Declan Rice, actually Arsenal had a bid in. Arsenal's bid was at £90 million for Declan Rice, and rival clubs have also started putting in their bids. When you talk about rival clubs, we mean about the clubs that are intending to rival Arsenal on getting Declan Rice. Do not forget that one of these clubs is Bayern Munich. So Bayern Munich have come out today. The latest that we're getting from Bayern Munich is that Bayern Munich is willing to pay quite a big figure for him. Arsenal said they're going to pay £90 million, and Bayern Munich wants to pay £95 million. And despite all those two clubs coming in, each club saying I'm paying this, the other club saying I'm paying this, uh, West Ham as a football club also has said they need £120 million, and they're not negotiating. So the fact that West Ham have come out and said we need £120 million, no negotiation. But negotiations can always be there. Can always you've always got to give a gap for negotiations. So Arsenal saying they're giving 90 million pound. That shows you how desperate Arsenal needs a Declan Rice, because Arsenal's transfer target is actually 72 million pound. And 72 million pound, that was something in 2019 with Nicolas Pepe. And that was a record that had never happened. And the fact that Arsenal comes in at this point in time and they say, we not only giving you 90 million pound, we are definitely also willing to extend. If anybody's putting more, if anybody's taking him for more money, we're also going to be into that bidding war. That shows you how desperate Arsenal is for Declan Rice. But you can understand why Arsenal is desperate to have Declan Rice. It will be remembered that Arsenal ended in the second position. And one of the biggest problems that Arsenal faced, I mean, the second position wasn't the worst of positions, but one of the biggest problems that Arsenal faced is towards the end. The boys couldn't match up the pressure. There was quite a lot of pressure. There was quite big pressure for these boys. They definitely were playing brilliantly. They played quite well. And everybody thought Arsenal, we reached an extent and we were like, definitely Arsenal is going to be taking this trophy. Undoubtedly, there's no club that is going to be taking this trophy apart from Arsenal. But towards the end, we were quite a bit disappointed because the pressure was not there was they had a lot of pressure on them. They played so many games and they were playing to their maximum. They were playing very well and playing very many games. So I think that is something that definitely needed to be addressed. That is something that definitely needed to be addressed, because the number of the players actually themselves, they were, I think they reached an extent where they gave in 100%, and they gave up. They reached an extent where they had to give up because they had given in 100% in the first phase of the season. Second phase of the season, they were exhausted. I don't know whether you understand what I mean, but it was definitely not the best of times for the club, Arsenal. But ending up second in on the table isn't bad. I mean, Arsenal's going for Champions League football, and when you see clubs like Liverpool, they do not have that chance. So I think Arsenal has done quite well in that sense, and uh, I think it will be doing much better to come next season. Anyway, we're talking about Declan Rice and the fact that there is a bit of a war, there is a bit of a bidding war between the club Bayern Munich and Arsenal. Let's talk a little bit about Bayern Munich and Arsenal. What is actually happening? You can tell, or you can see that Thomas Tuchel, who is the manager of, or you can call him Thomas Tuchel, who is the manager of Bayern Munich, is also looking for a defensive midfielder very badly. So he sees there are two defensive midfielders that he admires as a football manager. And he's given the management of Bayern Munich an option. He's told them he needs one of the two football players. And this is where it is tricky. So Thomas Tuchel says uh, he wants either Granit Xhaka, who is an Arsenal football player, and if he can't get Granit Xhaka, then he will definitely. Actually, the first in the line is Declan Rice. He says Thomas Tuchel says needs Declan Rice, and if he doesn't get Declan Rice, then he'll be going for Granit Xhaka. And the thing is, where it comes a little bit tricky again is Arsenal are not willing to let Granit Xhaka go unless they found the perfect replacement. As Mikel Arteta came out in a press conference and said, Arsenal is not going to let Granit Xhaka move away from the club unless they have already secured a move for a defensive midfielder. In this sense, we're talking about Declan Rice. So if Declan Rice comes to the club Arsenal, then Granit Xhaka will definitely. There are very many chances that Granit Xhaka will end up at Bayern Munich. I know Granit Xhaka is an okay football player, is a very good football player. But when you put the two to comparison, Declan Rice is a much better football player. So Arsenal trying to make sure that they can land this football player, they can land this signing, Declan Rice signing. It all tells you, it all shows you that it's gonna be a game changer. Declan Rice is gonna be a game changer, and the fact that Arsenal is also going for Champions League football, the fact they're going for Champions League football, it tells you how they need a bigger squad, how they need a stronger squad. And Arsenal is looking for defensive midfielders who are actually who've got quite power. You know, they've got power and strength, and you can obviously see that in Declan Rice. Then, leaving Declan Rice again, then we're going to be talking about Manchester City's Ilke Gundogan, who is also a perfect one, who's also a very good football player. He is a midfielder, isn't he? And also Joao Cancelo. So it will be remembered that there was a swap. There was a swap of football players recently. Uh, it wasn't a swap. I should say it was a swoop, because we saw two football players moving from Manchester City, crossing over to Arsenal. Now the question is, with this, we saw anyway the football players were Alexander Zinchenko. We saw Alexander Zinchenko, and also we saw Alexander Zinchenko, and we saw Gabriel Jesus moving from Manchester City to Arsenal. Now the question is, with what Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko have done, how they've been on form, how they've played quite well, and how Arsenal has performed, is Manchester City in a position of is Manchester City in a position of saying, it's okay, I'm going to give you Joao Cancelo, and I'm also going to give you I'm going to give you Ilke Gundogan. However, with it, I don't know whom I should start with, but with Ilke Gundogan, let me start with Gundogan. Anyway, let me start with Cancelo. Joao Cancelo, first of all, he's not been playing for Manchester City. He was loaned. He was loaned, and when he was loaned, he went and played quite well. And on his return, he was just a season loan. And when he returns, Arsenal are saying they definitely want him. And Pep Guardiola is not so keen about signing him on a long-term contract, but also giving him another one, another long-term contract. But also, it will be remembered that Pep Guardiola is also in fear that Arsenal is going to take over these football players, and Arsenal is going to be the next big thing. So Pep Guardiola looks a little bit confused about what to do. He does not know what to do. But what I think, he doesn't want to sell to Arsenal because he knows what extent Arsenal could be bringing a lot, the extent of danger that Arsenal could be bringing to them, to Manchester City as a football club. So the fact that they are not using him, it could be quite a bit easy for them to sell as management, but not as Pep Guardiola. I don't think Pep Guardiola will be very happy about that. Then also seeing also the other thing is the other sorry the other football player. The other football player that we're talking about is Ilkay Gundogan. So talking about Ilkay Gundogan, he's been linked to a number of football clubs. Barcelona needs him, but also Arsenal needs him very badly. And Arsenal are willing to put in anything to make sure that they can have him. But now, Manchester City does not have a big say on Ilkay Gundogan, because Ilkay Gundogan is now a free transfer. Manchester City had their own time with Ilkay Gundogan. They had quite a long period of time. They had last year, and they would have talked him through so that they can extend the contract. They would have tied him to Manchester City, but they did not. They messed up. And right about now, Ilkay Gundogan is a free agent, and despite the fact that he's a free agent, he is also on very, very big form. When you saw the match between Manchester United and Manchester City, we are talking about the football player who won that game. it was solely won by Ilke Gundogan. I mean, he scored two wonderful goals. And if you've got a football player of his caliber, if you've got a good football player like Ilke Gundogan in your team, then you definitely know that you are sorted. You definitely know that everything will be going on quite well for you as a football player, as a football club. So Ilke Gundogan now is on form at current. When you talk about current form, Ilke Gundogan, definitely you have to talk about the name Ilke Gundogan when you talk about current form. He's been scoring goals left, right. I mean, even when Haaland has not scored for Manchester City, Ilke Gundogan has been a very big threat, and that's what any club needs. That's what any club is looking for. So for a club like Arsenal, getting Ilke Gundogan, that will be a very brilliant thing. It will be a very wonderful thing. And I think he definitely will come with quite a lot of stuff. He will definitely be coming with quite a lot of talent. Also, do not forget that Arsenal has a young squad, and this young squad definitely also needs a supplement of experienced football players. And Ilke Goodwin is one of the most experienced football players, in the Premier League. So bringing his expertise, tactic, dribbling skills, finishing, 100% finishing to the club, definitely to the club Arsenal, I think that will be a very good one. I think that will definitely be a good move. So uh, uh, also, somebody was asking me about whether Declan Rice has knows his future just as yet. So Declan Rice recently, I must say, yesterday, is it yesterday after the final with Fiorentina, because Declan Rice had the final with West Ham had the final with Fiorentina. Sorry. And when he was asked in an interview, when Declan Rice was asked in an interview, he came out and said he's not very sure about where he's going uh, because there are quite a lot of clubs that are interested in him. That was a little bit a brilliant thing to say. Anyway, uh, so let's talk also about. We've talked about now three football players. We've talked about Declan Rice. We've talked about Ilke Gundogan, and we've also talked about Joao Cancelo. So also we need to talk about Moises Caicedo. So Moises Caicedo is also a defensive midfielder, a very good one. And we will also be talking about who is linked to an Arsenal exit very soon. So Moises Caicedo, he was a very good one, and he's been playing brilliantly before. He's definitely playing quite well as a defensive midfielder, and that's why big clubs are after him. That's why very many clubs are after Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo is a professional football player who plays for Brighton and Hove. And when you see the fact that Brighton and Hove managed to score a number of goals and finished in the 60th position, you can tell, you can definitely tell how good Moises Caicedo is. In every game he's played, singly, figuring him out singly, he's been a brilliant football player. He's been a very good football player. And the fact that he's played quite well, you can tell, you can definitely tell that things are going on quite well. He's been playing brilliantly. Mm, let me see. I've got somebody in the comment section trying to say something, saying if Jorginho is sold, then we need both Rice and Caicedo. Yeah, that's true, but we're not yet very sure about that. Anyway, so we're still talking about Moises Caicedo, who is a Brighton and Hove football player. And the fact that Brighton and Hove finished in the 60th position, that definitely tells you how uh, what Brighton and Hove finished in the 60th position. That shows you how good definitely he's been for the club. The fact that Brighton and Hove ended up in the 60th position, and some of this was contributed to the attributes were definitely given to Moises Caicedo as a defensive midfielder. He was a man of the match for quite a number of games for Brighton and Hove, and him managed to play brilliantly, played well, played quite well, and I think him moving from the club Brighton and Hove crossing over to Arsenal, it will be a very big advantage to him. You can also tell that Brighton and Hove are willing to sell, because Brighton and Hove of recent they came out and said they are willing to sell off uh, two football players. One was Alexis McAllister, who is already sold. He's already made his move. I think Arsenal's lost out on him, as Arsenal showed a bit of interest, but he's ended up at Liverpool. But Moises Caicedo has not yet finalized his move, but it is said that he's having talks with the club Arsenal, and these talks are going on quite well. And there is a very big possibility that he will end up at the club Arsenal, as Roberto Di Zabri came out and said that they are willing to let these two football players or even more go, because Brighton and Hove is not a football club that retains big football players. They always want to give them a chance for these football players to compete. They want always to give them a chance to compete in the big leagues and also play for big clubs. And when we talk about big clubs, are we talking about clubs like Arsenal, Manchester City, Manchester United, who else? Chelsea, Liverpool. Anyway, let's see who is linked to an exit of the club. So Balogun, who is currently on loan, AC Milan and Inter Milan are trying to make sure they can get Balogun. We see who is linked to an exit of the club. And Balogun has scored quite a big number of goals. And the fact that at first I thought Balogun would definitely stay at Arsenal, but the chances of him coming back to Arsenal and staying at the club are very limited. And he's looking at playing every time, making his game better. So the chances of him remaining at the club are very, very low. And also, we're talking about another exit is Tierney. And Newcastle are in pole position to sign Tierney, as Newcastle are leading. They are the ones leading the rest of signing Tierney, as Tierney is heading for an exit. He's done his job at Arsenal, and he's definitely looking at going. Then the other football player that we are talking about is Martin Odegaard. Martin Odegaard has been also linked to an exit, with Paris Saint-Germain showing quite a bit of interest in Martin Odegaard, but the club Arsenal came out and said 100% Martin Odegaard is not for sale. Then the other football player that is linked to an exit is Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka could be moving to Bayern Munich anytime from now, and we said that before. And then let's see who's got. We can also talk about contracts, and Saliba contract talks are progressing quite well, and there is a very big chance that William Saliba is going to sign a new contract. William Saliba is definitely going nowhere. And also, Nelson has agreed in principle a 4-year deal at the club Arsenal, and it looks that Rhys Nelson is definitely going nowhere. He's staying at the club Arsenal, despite the fact that there are a number of clubs that are interested in Rhys Nelson. The fact remains that Rhys Nelson is going nowhere, and there is no possibility. We don't see any chance of Rhys Nelson leaving the club. So you can let us know what you definitely think about this, about Rhys Nelson remaining at the club. Do you think he needs or he deserves a new contract or not? Do you think Saliba deserves a new contract or not? You can go into the comment section and let us know. Give us your opinion, and we can always move along. As we have been talking about who is expected to leave the club, who is leaving the club, who is it just a rumor, and also who must leave the club. As you already know that we are in the transfer season, and the transfer season has just begun. If you do not want to miss out, just make it a point, subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you do not miss out on anything that we've got to bring to you, as long as it is sports and as long as it is Arsenal related, right about here at the Arsenal chapter with me, your host Abu Kaus, as I tell thank you and goodbye for now.